Hello and welcome to Web Development 101 with Alex Merced. On this show, we'll talk about all the basic concepts of web development in a way that anyone can understand, whether it's front-end web development, back-end web development, and full-stack web development. If you're new to web development, I recommend listening from episode 1 to understand all the concepts from beginning to end. You can also learn more about my own personal projects over there at AlexMercedCoder.work. Thank you.
Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced from AlexMercedCoder.com, and you are listening to Web Development 101, and this week we want to talk about mobile development. Now, so nowadays, a lot of times when you are using a mobile application, actually generally when you are using a mobile application, you are using the web. So mobile application is web development. The problem is it's a different platform. So up till now, you've generally had to use different languages. So in the early days, if you wanted to program a Apple iPhone application, you had to use a language called Objective-C. If you wanted to program an Android app, you would have to use Java. The problem is these are verbose languages. Now, verbose just meaning that in order to get something done, you do sometimes have to type up a lot of code. That means they're also fast languages, which is great during the early days of these platforms when they weren't as powerful as they are now. Like, iPhones weren't as powerful, and Android phones weren't as powerful. But it also means it takes a lot more work for development. And then the other issue is now you need 3 teams to deliver the goods. So you want to create a cool web application, you need a team who does HTML, CSS, and JavaScript to execute the web application. You need a Swift team you need an Objective-C or Swift team to do a Apple application, because Swift was sort of the successor to Objective-C. That was supposed to be sort of a little bit, more modern syntax, a little bit less verbose. That would make it easier for people to program Apple applications. And the successor for Java was Kotlin, which can be used for mobile. Generally, any Java-based languages can be used for Android mobile applications. But you would need 3 teams: a Kotlin team, a Swift team, and a HTML, CSS, JavaScript team. That's 3 teams to create the same application on 3 different platforms. For some situations where speed matters, where your access to sort of native phone features like push alerts, stuff like that, you still have to do that. That's just the reality of it. But not all applications need all those bells and whistles, nor do they need all that speed. They're just basic applications. So nowadays, there's much more platforms that give the ability for web developers to actually be able to create mobile applications using existing web technologies. One of the most popular is ReactNative, where you basically just use JavaScript React to make mobile applications. There's that, and then there's also NativeScript, which you can pretty much use any other type of JavaScript framework, TypeScript, Angular, Vue to create mobile applications using a framework called NativeScript. So that allows a JavaScript developer to have a lot more reach beyond just the web browser. But those aren't the only tools. There's another language called Dart. And then with Dart, Google created Flutter. Flutter is a compiler that'll actually compile your Dart code into Android native code and into Apple native code. So that way you can essentially create an application for both using one code base. And that's gaining a lot of popularity. Apparently, it's a really cool language. Then there is a Ruby framework for doing so, and a .NET framework. So Xamarin is the .NET framework. So you can use C#, F#, VB.NET to create mobile applications using Xamarin. And I forget what the Ruby one is called, but it exists. So if you want to program mobile apps in Ruby, you can do that. And as far as there are tools for creating mobile applications in other languages, but none that seem to really have gained as much traction as the ones that I just mentioned. But the point being is that nowadays you don't necessarily, if you want to be able, especially for a small startup where you may not necessarily want to have 3 teams of developers, there are now tools for you to actually achieve that. Or if you're just someone who's just doing something out of your garage, it's a small personal project, but you wanted to have the applications, it's now doable. And that gets into the whole idea of progressive web applications. So now progressive web applications, which I think I previously did an episode on, is now becoming more and more of a thing, where basically people are saying, you know what, how about this? How about we avoid the whole actual application thing? You know, instead of building an actual native app that's in the App Store for Android or iPhone, where you have to wait for approvals, you have to pay fees to be in the store, you have to give a cut of your revenue. How about we create pretty much the same thing, but just not in the store? And basically you create websites that are optimized to pretty much work on a mobile phone as if they were an app. These are called progressive web applications. These are web applications that pretty much when you go to the website, it feels like you're using a mobile app. So you probably have seen this where you've got some of your favorite websites from your mobile browser, and it's like suddenly there's a very mobile first experience when you go there from your mobile browser. Those are progressive web applications. And then you can just do the sort of export where it creates a little button to a website on your phone and you have access to that application whenever you need it. So that's becoming more of a thing, and I think there's ways you can make them offline. So basically just downloads the code onto your phone. But progressive web applications offer sort of a new opportunity, and you can just do that in any kind of framework. So you can use Stencil, Angular, Svelte, Vue, whatever, to create a progressive web application and use any backend. And the benefit of this, you don't have to wait for approvals, you don't have to share fees. All those things are just no longer an issue. The only issue is that people aren't right now, they're not trained to look for progressive applications. People generally still look in an app store first for applications to do the things they want. So that's sort of the big reason why you would still create a native application, because people expect it. There's sort of air legitimacy now that happens when you create a native application. Like people are like, oh, okay, they have an app, so they're legit, that kind of thing. But progressive web applications will probably at some point become the norm, so it's a good thing to learn about. So hopefully this guys gave you a nice overview of sort of the world of mobile development and what your options are if you want to go learn something, or you have a project and you're trying to think of what your options are. So have a great day. I'll talk to you guys later.